When we start trying to analyze the value proposition for an information system, it helps us to understand what it is we actually mean by value. And a Harvard researcher a long time ago, last name is Walsh, defined 4 types of economic value, and this list has continued today to be the rather definitive list of what economic value is. And he said that there were 4 kinds. There's use value, esteem value, cost value, and exchange value. And each one of these is viewed differently, and in the context of an information system, as we'll see, we approach them in a particularly unique way. Use value is associated with the concept that an item has value only when it is used. In fact, we often say it has value at the exact moment it's being used. There is a whole set of research associated with stored value, which means that an asset has value even when it's not being used. But that's a bit controversial. Sometimes we get into accounting discussions about things like that. But from an economist standpoint, the thing only has value as it's being used. Walsh would say a thing's power, the power inherent in an object, is its ability to serve our ends. Next comes esteem value. Esteem value is the value of goods or services according to the status they afford to the user. It's often associated with the notion of power, in that we say an item has in its nature the power to make us desire it, and Walsh would say it's things' power to make us desire to possess it. It's that last little bit that is that's important to us. It's desire to possess it, with the idea, of course, later we might use it. Cost value, which is often used in business from an accounting standpoint, that would be what Walsh would say: a thing's power to impose upon us the effort to acquire it, and we measure that effort in cost, labor costs or money costs. These are the type of this kind of cost value is what's often discussed in MBA classes. Finally, we have exchange value, and this is an item is measured by what it can be exchanged for. Walsh would say a thing's power to procure other things in its place. In other words, we exchange item A for item B. It's not really the same thing as price. However, in neoclassical economics, because we make some assumptions about perfect competition and the intelligence and kind of all-knowingness of the market, exchange value is the same thing as price. So it all kind of depends on what flavor of economics you're interested in. If an item is not in a marketplace, then it has no price, but it might have a hypothetical price. Okay, there is a very important order to these 4 things. Everything in terms of economic value is based upon use value, the value of the thing to be used. Esteem value comes from the fact that we can use an item. Then we have cost value and exchange value. Both of those are based upon esteem value, but have no direct relationship to use value. So in order to get to the value of something because we use it, we have to go through esteem value, and that can get a little tricky as we wander through the order. Okay, so how does an information system relate to all of this? For use value, an information system has value when we use it, and that's going to be very important in just another slide or two. Esteem value, an information system has the potential to increase or decrease the desirability of a company or a product. Cost value, an information system has the potential to decrease or increase the operating or production costs of a company or product. So we can decrease the costs of producing a product. Exchange value. An information system can be used as part of an exchange. In other words, if I build an information system that allows me to exchange technology for labor, in other words, lay people off, we would measure the exchange value of that information system. We might also think that could be part of cost value, and there can be some overlap. Now, Ronald Coase, a Nobel Prize-winning economist, came up with this idea of transaction costs. And essentially, Coase's theorem, which we'll talk about a little later on in the class, says that all other things being equal, there should be no preference for a company to use either internal resources or external resources if everything else is equal. If the transaction costs of using a system, whether it's internal or external, come into play, then we start making decisions based upon what it costs to use a particular system or to do a particular thing. As companies become larger and more geographically dispersed, there are some things that company is going to do that actually are more expensive to do internally. In the mid-1990s, partly due because of infrastructure investments and standards, the cost of doing work in the firm became greater and outsourcing began. So what's the relationship between internal costs and use value? By focusing on use value, assuming acceptable levels of quality and equal costs, a company becomes indifferent as to who owns the processes it uses. Instead, it focuses on the value it receives. In other words, it focuses on the use value of the product or use value of the system, and it doesn't care who provides it. This is what outsourcing is all about. So how does this affect ROI? ROI is something that we pay a lot of attention to in MBA programs. ROI is often calculated without regard to the type of value the underlying project creates. The result is often a misunderstanding of the role the project ultimately plays in the organization. ROI is a mechanism for addressing exchange value. The ROI of a project A really doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't have as much meaning, at least, until you start saying the ROI of project A compared to that of the ROI of project B. That way we can start thinking in terms of exchange. In conclusion, the value of an information system lies in its use, and that is why we focus a lot on outsourcing. This is not an information systems only concept, and all processes in our organizations are subject to Coase's theorem and the notion of use value. An information system can affect the cost value, esteem value, or exchange value of a product or even the company itself. And the information system itself can be desired, purchased, or exchanged. This is what we think of when we think of the notion of economic value as it relates to information systems.